are currently streaming to the Event 202 channel, the Event 202 Facebook group, and also the Lift and the Lid channel on YouTube. And welcome everyone in the chat room. Thank you everyone for being here. Just making sure that you can see us and hear us. So if someone can just kindly put a yes in the chat room, just to make sure. There we go. It does sound good. I'm just gonna close another session I've got going. 1 second. There we go. Yeah, I think we're definitely doing okay, guys. Where are we? StreamYard. There we go. So I've just whipped around all the browsers, and yes, we are being heard, and people are saying yes. That's wonderful. So it gives me great pleasure to announce two guests tonight who are going to cover the subject of Article 61 and take us right the way through the journey of what it is, how it's used, all the best things that we should know about Article 61. And first of all, I'd like to introduce Simone. Hi, Simone. How are you doing?
Hi, love. I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm really good. And for those who don't know Simone and I were actively involved in Event 202 last month. And Simone was the organizer and I was the live streamer. So between us, we managed to get a few things done. Great event. And thanks to everyone who subscribed to Event 202 channel.
Yes.
We had loads of great new subscribers. We're up to 7,000 subs. And we already have 100 live viewers, which is absolutely awesome. And welcome everyone who's watching on the Facebook group, and I'll just do the introduction to Jackie and we'll come back to you, Simone. Jackie, lovely to see you. Thanks for joining.
Well, nice to be here.
And you are sitting where in this wonderful plane of existence? Where are you sitting?
I'm in Alberta, Canada.
Awesome. And it's about lunchtime with you, I gather.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, today what we're going to do is just cover the basics of Article 61, and then we're going to go into more depth. So the first part of this conversation will be about how you came across it and telling us a little bit about your journey. But before we do, Jackie, Simone, why don't you just share what prompted you to come to the table with an interview like this?
Well, as you know, lots of things have been moving very quickly in the world, and a lot of people have, in many different groups, have been talking about police and martial law and what it means with acts and statutes that have been passed through Parliament without being put to the people. Mm-hmm. And I came across lawful dissent and or lawful rebellion, I think is another term which you can talk about, Jackie. And Jackie seemed to be riding a wave within a group which has a bit of a history with a gentleman called David
Robinson.
That's it, David Robinson, who's really pioneered it, I think, over the last sort of 10, 15 years or so, maybe even longer, here in the UK, that is. And you came under his wing, and you've kind of continued that legacy on, which is wonderful. And I can really see the benefit to understanding the Magna Carta, and the reason why I was drawn to it is because of our sovereignty.
Okay.
And the fact that it's oath taking, and sovereignty is biblical. And you know me, I've said before, Robin, you know, I'm a woman of faith. I fear God and God alone. And I think that this is an important message that people need to understand who they are. And that's what I think this movement is all about. It's knowing who you are. So I wanted to give Event 202 members this opportunity to empower themselves through this process, which isn't, it's easy to navigate once you understand it. It will all fall into place. But when you're just looking from the outside in, it can look quite complex. But you're going to talk us through that, and that's going to be so helpful for all our viewers, and even in the Lawful Dissent group, which we've promoted it within as well. So I hope I can already see some of your family, if you will, on the side here, giving you highs. So you've obviously done some excellent work, and I wanted to other people to know about this. So that's why, really, I'm just being kind.
Oh, good for you. Now, from my perspective, this is relatively new subject. I've been aware of maritime law and statute law from good old Jordan Maxwell some time ago. He talked about the law of the land and the law of the sea, and I learned about things like the birth certificate being a maritime term, and the dock, and the judges wearing wigs, and things that were written in your straw man, which I'm sure you're going to cover. But for me, I learned about it was potentially possible to address this court, which seemed a fraudulent court, because they were trying to stitch your straw man up. And I understood that you might be able to disengage from that process because your parents, whether you liked it or not, were giving you up as a commercial piece of goods, if you like, at the dock. And to me, my knowledge it didn't go much further than that. I read a couple of books, and I learnt from a UK author who had successfully avoided TV license and a few fines and a few bits and bobs. And I thought, that's really fascinating to know that the whole legal structure doesn't seem to be as straight as it's made up to be, and it certainly isn't acting in the interest of the people. So from my perspective, that's where I started this conversation. And as I mentioned off camera earlier, Article 61 came up for me when someone came up to Jason Disbury's live stream in Glastonbury, and he was there with Piers Corbyn and a few others who were protesting the lockdown, and someone came right up to the camera with Article 61, and someone is also mentioning somebody called John Harris, and yes, this is a person who I have followed for years, and he's all about national sovereignty. But back to the Article 61 thing in Glastonbury, it made me pique my interest. Like, what is current? Why are we so interested in this Article 61 today? Why is it so relevant? So I think, Jackie, what would be great is why don't you start with some basics for us? Let's ask the question: what got you into this in the first place, and then we'll start with this sovereignty thing.
Well, in 2001, I was a single mother. I didn't have internet access or anything at the time. And I seen on the end of the newscast, it wasn't a news story. It was just at the tail end of the newscast in March of 2001. They had mentioned that there was an important announcement coming out of England, and that the Barons Committee had invoked Article 61 of the 1215 Magna Carta. Knowing that Canada was a Commonwealth country, I instantly knew that that was extremely important for Canadians. But I didn't have any clue what it was. And without having access to the internet like I do today, it just kind of slipped my mind over time. And I didn't understand it, so I didn't really pursue it. Then a little over a year ago, Canada got involved with the Yellow Vest movements and stuff, protesting the things that our Prime Minister was doing. And France was already involved in the Yellow Vest movement at the time. So I donned my yellow vest and I grabbed my picket sign and away I went. Okay. I did a lot of Facebook sharing of posts and things like that. And that's when I stumbled upon a video of a gentleman using Article 61 of the 1215 Magna Carta. And I traced that video back to the group Practical Lawful Dissent in the UK. Okay. That's where I found David Robinson, and the rest is kind of history.
Okay, very good. So why don't we start with some basic Article 61 questions which people might come up with. So let's start with what is sovereignty? We've heard it mentioned a couple of times. Can you give us some context?
Okay, well, we are all born with unalienable birthright that can neither be given nor taken away. So we are all equal in the eyes of God. Sovereignty means that we are kings and queens in our own lands, regardless of how much wealth we may or may not have. It's true freedom.
I see. Okay, that's good. And let's talk about common law system. Where did that come from?
Well, the common law system is actually designed by the people, for the people, to protect the people. And this was done in the days of Alfred the Great. He was a truly good king. So he sent his men out into the kingdom to talk to the people themselves and to find out their laws and their customs and how they're happy to be governed.
Okay. And so we in the UK we had a feudal system that was then kind of dominated by the monarchs and the royals. So what kind of role did they play in all of this history from Alfred?
Well, because the people are sovereign and our common law system protects the people, the monarch's role is to protect the people's sovereignty and to uphold our common law system, to make sure that we're happy.
Okay. And we
Can I say so?
Yeah, please do, Timon.
The way I understand it is that we have a crown, which is associated with all the Commonwealth, and the crown took an oath to protect the people and uphold the common law or the constitutional law, which is this Magna Carta. Like, Magna Carta is enshrined within our constitution. It's not the only thing. It's made up of a number of different
documents. Yes, but the Magna Carta is the foundation of it. Yes.
And these things should actually be in our hearts anyway, because they really boil down to love God and love your neighbor, right? Yeah. And that we are all here created equally under God, that no man is above any other man. And when the crown was there governing us, it had to be by consent of the people. And so this is what this whole premise is that the crown, even today, our queen, and our government, who are the agents of the crown, they act on behalf of the crown. They are in service to the crown. They pledge an oath to the crown to uphold the law of the common law of the land, the Magna Carta, those rights, unalienable rights, and to keep the peace. And what I find is really interesting is that it's an oath that the Queen took. When she took office, she took an oath to protect us and to govern us well.
Yeah. The Queen takes an oath to God and the people. Public servants take an oath to the Queen. So their oath to the Queen is actually an oath to the people via the Queen.
Interesting comment from Angela. I don't want to interrupt our thinking here, but if you listen carefully, the Queen says in sincerity. This is not grammatically incorrect, and it's basically saying she's not sincere. Good observation. So we're talking about, and Kieran's making a nice comment here, any parliamentary law that is done in Parliament without the consent of the people means it's treasonous. So we're going to keep the subject on the Magna Carta here. Have we talked about the origin of it enough? Would you like to say any more on that?
Well, the Magna Carta was actually born out of the treason and tyranny of King John. So it is. That's why Article 61 is the highest constitutional law ever written. Every crime has a law that deals with that crime. Treason is the most serious crime that can be committed. And Article 61 is the law that deals with that crime. Okay. So it is a law designed specifically to remedy treason. And that's why it is so important. Magna Carta is our only forever binding constitution that predates Parliament. So they can't touch it. It can only be changed by the people via a constitutional convention of the people.
And is this where Jordan Maxwell used to say the maritime law used to kind of fake its precedent over the common law, the law of the land. Is the Magna Carta then the foundation of the law of the land?
Yes, it is.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
It's
it is.
what all
It
laws
is.
are based on over time, and any act or statute that comes into force after this is supposed to uphold it still. It can't infringe it or impede any of our constitutional rights, because if it does, it makes it
Exactly.
unlawful. And
Okay,
that's people have got to get used to those terms when talking about common law versus commercial law, because
Yes.
there is difference in the way that the language that is used. So acts and statutes are commercial in the commercial law, and law, constitutional law, rights, they are enshrined within the law.
So let's talk about some of the ways in which the acts have kind of hoodwinked the people. Shall we start with the straw man and the birth certificate?
I think so, because this is really interesting, right? This is going back to the Act of 1666. This is it the say tuve in 1666. What an odd number. The Parliament passed an act in secret that basically said that everyone was dead at sea because of the plague, because of the fires, which I'm pretty sure, knowing our treasonous government already, they probably set it up like that, passed through these laws without anybody seeing them or knowing about them, and it made fictional entities of every single person from that point. Because that is, they then are no longer this flesh and blood man because they're lost at sea.
Okay.
Actually, it goes back even farther than that.
Really?
They perfect. Yes. Magna Carta is such a powerful document that they have been trying to destroy it from day one. So they actually perfected the corpus juris and the legal fiction known as the Justinian Code. They actually perfected that in 1230, only 15 years after Magna Carta was sealed. It wasn't brought into effect until much later, but they already had it in the plan.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
and then 1297, they committed treason by turning Magna Carta into a statute version, which they did not have the right to do. And they've deceived the people by pretending like they've been repealing the articles of Magna Carta. You'd be surprised at how many people think that Article 61 isn't even there anymore.
Yeah, that's something I get quite a lot. I even had an email yesterday saying, did you know the Pope signed this under duress, or something like that. And I just presented the same information that I've seen, which is it's based on it. The government's cabinet manual, which every parliamentary member has, even states that the Magna Carta is where it draws all acts and statutes from. So you're right. I think many people over many centuries, criminals, mind you, have tried to erode that away or make it look like it's obsolete, hide it, bury it.
And everything they've done is treason. And the treason goes back centuries. Yeah. They have completely hoodwinked the people. And it's time that we stand up and say no more of this.
Okay, so what we talked about the straw man, the lying, and I'm just going to kind of bring up some of the learnings I had when I was first studying this, and that is with the statute book. Somebody's put a really good comment in chat. Is acts are like pretending like you're in a theater, and everyone is pretending on behalf of the Crown Corporation to do government business. And some of the language which you mentioned off camera, the legalese that they use is terms out of the acts which they're in. Is it the Black's Law Dictionary? They have different meanings.
Oxford Styles Manual.
so the lay person goes into a court of law and he doesn't realize that they're all talking to each other in a secret code, basically, and they're trying to hoodwink you into coming under their statutes and getting trapped by it. Can you explain some of that?
Well, all the acts and statutes fall under the corpus juris. So where all that stems from is central London. And once the people have redressed, we're actually going to have a constitutional convention of the people, and we will be removing the protection from central London out of the Magna Carta, because central London is actually run by Rome, and the corpus juris is Roman admiral law of commerce. That's why everything is listed as a corporation, including our courts. And a corporation's sole purpose is to generate revenue. There's no such thing as government debt because they're making money hand over fist.
Yes, and I remember Jason.
And they're using the unlawful acts and statutes to do that.
I remember Jason in Glastonbury, just on a minor point, just saying they're out to do business today. They're looking to issue fines.
That's all they're doing, is looking for victims and to enforce policy and extort from you your money. And something that I've really learned is that you don't even have to give them your name. They are relying on you giving them your name. If you haven't committed a crime, and you have to understand what a crime is, the definition of a crime is you cannot have a victimless crime. You have to have a victim. So the policeman, if he's going to convict you of a crime, he has to have a victim, and he has to have evidence that you've committed that crime, and he has to also prove that there was reasonable intent. So people need to understand that when they're in a park and an officer comes up to them and tries to give them a fine for exercising their unalienable right to freedom to walk across the land and travel across the land, he's actually acting criminally. He's actually acting unlawfully. And the reason is because he himself is under oath, which is a very, very, very important thing to do. He's under oath to uphold the law of the land, which is not acts and statutes, not policy. So when they're coming at you trying to enforce their policy, they are acting criminally.
Exactly. Laws are very, very different from acts and statutes. Laws remain in perpetuity, and they can only be created by the people. And we do that via jury nullification, which they've treasonously stripped of us. Right?
You mean having a court of 12 good men? Is that right? When you say a jury, a court de jour is actually having a jury present that are impartial and unbiased and independent.
Well, a court de jour is a little bit different from just a regular common law jury trial. Okay. A court de jour has full jury nullification. And that means that jury has a right and duty to nullify any act or statute that does not fall within the confines of our Constitution. So if you're brought before a jury of your peers for offending an act or statute, breaking a rule, shall we say, the jury can come back with a verdict of nullification if they feel it is unconstitutional, and that act or statute gets stricken from the law books, never to be entered into again. And that's how powerful create laws.
Wow. So
for example, then the coronavirus bill over here, if someone was dragged before a jury on charges of committing an offense, not a crime, an offense, that's what the difference is. This is the language difference that they use. The jury can nullify this because it infringes upon the foundation of every law, which is our rights.
Yes, exactly.
And then it will nullify and void.
Work. When government wants to bring in an act or a statute, first it must fall within the confines of the Constitution, meaning it can only add to the protection of the people. It cannot remove protection from the people. Then it has to receive royal assent from a constitutional monarch, because the monarch takes an oath to protect the people's sovereignty and uphold our common law system. It is that monarch's duty to overlook the act or statute and say, well, this I don't feel is unconstitutional. I'm not granting it royal assent. Or, yeah, it looks like it could be presented to the people. I'll grant it royal assent. Then it's presented to the people in the form of an act or statute, basically a rule that we have to follow. If we break that rule, then we are presented to the jury of our peers. The jury is not only there to assess your guilt or innocence, but they are there to assess the act or statute itself. And if the jury says, I feel that's infringing on our human rights, it's unconstitutional, they come back with jury nullification. The act or statute is then gone. If the jury feels it's a good law, then they will carry on, and it will be made law, and it will remain in perpetuity, forever binding.
And I'll just flip it then on the reverse. If this person was brought into a magistrate court, which is the court that they run under, not a peer with a peer jury, which is what a courtroom should look like. If I was in their Mickey Mouse courtroom, they are relying on me presenting myself as the fictional entity that then they can extort from me, not knowing that it's not law.
Here's the thing. The courts are operating as a foreign corporation. Okay, that is treason right there. Yes. So when you're brought before the court, they're only allowed to deal with the legal fiction. They don't have jurisdiction over the people. They don't have authority because they are a foreign corporation. So they're only allowed to deal with the legal fiction.
Yeah. Okay. So
and
just before
they're not courts. They're not courts at all. They're actually closed room corporate hearings.
Oh, right. Okay.
I see. So let's just rewind a little bit, if I may, just to make sure people are on the same page who are listening, because we now have 232 live viewers, which is absolutely awesome. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. The straw man is the legal entity that your birth certificate shows, and it's all caps. So, for instance, in the chat room today, we have Jason of the Disbury family. That's a great way of kind of avoiding saying Jason Disbury, and the full capped version of Jason Disbury may or may not be on his birth certificate, given up where his parents were essentially unwittingly giving him up as wards of the state into the not jurisdiction, but the oversight, if you like, of the state. And some really good comments coming in chat. And so Mickey's asked some great questions, and also, I've got to scroll right back up. But the main thing is that he mentioned the word understand. Do you mind just covering any legalese that you know that would trap someone in a court of law? Because I know a couple, but if you're familiar with some, would you mind?
Well, we reject the legalese, so we don't even go into their fake courts because they're not courts at all, and they don't have jurisdiction. Yeah. So we just stay right away from the legalese. It doesn't matter. It doesn't exist. We're under Article 61.
Fantastic place.
Regular English for us.
just for general awareness, then, if you don't mind, I'm just going to say things like when you're being addressed as your straw man and you say I understand, you're saying I stand under the ruling of the
authority,
fate and the authority. So that then kind of gets you on the hook for things like parking fines and TV license and crimes where there is offenses where I've got to use the right language, haven't I? Offenses where there's no victim. So I love the fact you're smiling, Jackie, because it means you've done the homework and you know where the power sits. So let's go into some of the questions which go into the Article 61 subject then, because we've covered pretty much every question up to your Article 61 point. Let's go into that then.
So Article 61 is the security clause. It protects the people from a treasonous regime. So it gives us a lawful, peaceful remedy to government treason. Treason is a war that's fought behind closed doors with the stroke of the pen. And that's why they've been able to get away with it for so long. The people didn't even realize that we were under attack by our own government. So Article 61 gives us a way to pick up our pens and fight back.
Okay, very good. And just I received an email just about 5 minutes ago that said, does any of this apply in the US at all, or is it just the Commonwealth?
Actually, Article 61 does apply to the United States.
Okay.
They don't like to hear things like their Declaration of Independence is a treasonous document.
Okay.
But it is. All constitutions come from the Magna Carta. But they're deceptively written to allow the government to chip away at your human rights slowly over time. So they don't fully protect the people the way that the Magna Carta does. So once Article 61 was invoked, all treasonous documents became null and void, including the United States Declaration of Independence.
Okay. That's interesting. And I remember... Go ahead.
It's another case of people just acquiescing, remaining silent, and then things getting buried and hidden. Okay. It would be really good to understand, Jackie, what would be one of the first things that you would say if to anybody that wants to make a start on this? Of course, read up on it, because it's important that you fully understand what it means. But, where would you point people to do that? And of course, you've got your page, your Facebook page, which I would definitely recommend anyone go to. And I think I've already put a link in the event 202, but I will do another link to it. But are there any other resources, places that you would recommend?
Well, we only use evidential facts. So all documents are public domain. So if you want to go and research the treason evidence, you can easily do that. There's plenty of sources out there that will link you straight into the documents themselves and whatnot. So you can research it on your own. We actually encourage people to go and verify our facts, because there is a lot of misconceptions around Magna Carta. So take a look at what we have, then go and verify it for yourselves, and then take the oath and start the process.
Okay, so we're about sort of halfway through, I guess, of some of the questions that we had lined up, Jackie. But for people that are asking the question, what can I do? Let's do a bit more about what Article 61 is for, what it's some about the history, and in the end, guys, we're going to get the documents out to you that Jackie's going to reference, including an overview PDF which Simone put together, which is really, really good. So if you want all of that information sent to you, then by all means email, as it says scrolling on the bottom of the screen there, robin3108@hotmail.com with the subject lawful info, with a space in between lawful and info, just like I've written it there. And an email will come rushing out to you from the server. I don't need to be there. It'll come flying out to you. Do make sure you get it right, though. Lawful space info, and it will come out to you. So why don't we cover, you've said what is Article 61. Let's talk about the why it was invoked and when it was invoked.
Okay, well, in 2001, the Barons Committee discovered that the Treaty of Nice, was a treasonous document. Was a treasonous document. So they petitioned the Queen to rectify the situation and not grant royal assent to the Treaty of Nice. They gave her 40 days to ratify the situation. And she responded on the 39th day via her private secretary with an unsatisfactory response, basically saying she didn't have the authority to do that because the treason has been committed and and the crown has been usurped. So the royal prerogative was removed from her a long time ago. Elizabeth actually inherited a treasonous regime, so her hands have been tied from day one. So that left the barons absolutely no choice but to invoke the security clause. And they did so on March 23rd, 2001.
Okay, so not so long ago, 19.
Is the only law in effect to this day.
So if I just take you back though, so not many people will have heard of 25 barons, right? Barons were, I would say, overlords. They were individuals within the country that were protective of the land and the people of the land, and they were the ones that presented Magna Carta to King John to sign on behalf of the people. So this is family generations coming down the lines of barons who are still alive today. There are many barons still alive today, and I believe there is a list on your
Yes, there is. We've got a list of accepting barons who accept the oaths. It's the job of the barons to oversee what the monarch is doing and make sure that they're being a constitutional monarch and upholding their coronation oath. Because Magna Carta is a forever binding document, it clearly states within Magna Carta that there must forever be a quorum of at least 25 barons to oversee what the monarch is doing. And that is their duty. They're in service to the people.
So we're saying here that a generational quorum of barons, 25 minimum, have actually invoked Article 61 in 2001, March the 23rd, I think you said. And they've effectively called the Queen out for being treasonous, and the government. Is it both? Are they calling both out? Are they both held to account? Is the Queen?
Yeah, because the Queen is the ultimate crown, and the government and police service and all the other services, they are in service to the Queen.
Yes. So they're calling out both pretty much. When Article 61 was invoked, because it is such a powerful law, there's actually a number of things that happened on that day. First, Article 61 became the only law in effect. So it is by royal command that we take the oath. So Article 61 is basically the Queen's final command as she's constitutionally dethroned to protect the realm. So the power is now in the hands of the people, not the government, not the Queen, only the people.
Interesting.
So on that day, the Queen was constitutionally dethroned. All of her governments throughout the Commonwealth were dissolved, and all treasonous documents became null and void.
Okay, so the guys on the fence here will be going, well, we saw no visible outworking of that dissolution. So tell us about what was the common law? How was this visibly seen? So we talked about statute law and common law. Was there something, a lawful court, a common law court, where this was witnessed and signed?
No. Article 61 was invoked according to constitutional royal prerogative. So it was the Barons Committee who did the invoking. And it started with the petition to the Queen. It was all done at Buckingham Palace. The barons were actually even, like, the regime was so upset that they did their duty to the people that the barons were actually tossed out of both Parliament and the House of Lords for doing their duty and invoking Article 61 for the people to use.
Wow.
So the regime has gone to great lengths to try to hide this from us.
Oh, wow. So the Queen's literally just gone AWOL at the minute, and I wonder if this has anything to do with it.
Well, all that was given into the public was some, like Jackie, you said at the beginning, you saw a very brief snippet at the end of a program about this very what happened in 2001.
Yes,
And
they were constitutionally bound to inform the people, but they did so in a very quiet way. Even in the UK, it was there was a Carolyn Davies did a story for the Telegraph, the Daily Telegraph, and it was even pushed back. It was just a little tiny story on page 5 of the newspaper. So
right?
They really tried to bury it. And that's because the government was dissolved. They have absolutely zero authority since March 23rd, 2001. They don't have the authority to make acts or statutes or legislation or anything else. They are criminal imposters posing as our government. They are an unlawful entity.
So fantastic. I'm getting a few emails and they're just slightly incorrect. So I just want to say, if you're watching and you've sent me an email, please make sure the subject has exactly how I've put it here. So it must say lawful space info. I've had legal info. I've had all sorts of different variations. So the emails are coming, which is fantastic. But do make sure you get the subject correct. Because I want to make sure it's all automated and I don't have to spend all of tomorrow doing it. So far, so good. I've had a few great questions in chat, Jackie, if I may. What's the difference between lawful rebellion and lawful dissent?
Well, we don't use the term rebel because rebels can be shot. And Article 61 is a peaceful, lawful remedy. So we use the term lawful dissent because public safety is our #1 concern.
Okay.
So we highly recommend using the term dissent instead of rebellion, because the regime, that's the thing, they want to use violence against us, and they will. So we try not to give them a reason.
And that's one of the important things about this movement that I really want to stress, is that this is a peaceful movement. This isn't a grab your pitchfork, grab your baseball bat, we're going down to the village hall. This is about, actually, the pen is more mightier than the sword. And what I have understood is that the barons invoking Article 61 in 2001 gave every man and woman within the Commonwealth the ability to redress the treason and the corruption that is going on, the criminal activity. However, it actually relies on every single person coming under it. Because if nobody comes under it, or only a small amount of people, you're whitewashed, you are silenced, you are pushed back, or it doesn't really make an effect. And that's one of the questions I wanted to ask you, Jackie. I mean, part of your movement is about getting people under their oath, which is an oath to the allegiance to the Barons Committee, who are in allegiance to the Constitution. You're effectively taking an oath in allegiance to the Constitution, but to the Barons Committee. Is that right?
Yes. Our oath is to the Constitution via the Barons.
That's it.
It's unlawful for us to support a treasonous regime. And Article 61 is the only law in effect. So our oath is more like a lawful document of intent. It's our intent to reject the treasonous regime and protect the Constitution at all costs, defend the realm.
Okay, so Simone, did you have a follow-on question?
Well, yeah, because I just want people to understand, because it is a bit of a mind mess, you know. You have to think your government is not your friend, and your government is not acting in your best interest. And actually, your government is only there because we so-called elected it there. We so-called consented to them governing us. And what we have to appreciate, we don't have to be governed by them. We don't have to accept and consent to everything that they're doing. But the only way you can do that is by making a notice or an oath that says, I no longer consent to this. I no longer want to be a part of that. I am taking back my sovereignty and my God-given right to govern myself.
Understood.
Yes, and our oath actually breaks all contracts with the treasonous regime, and that includes
in a
the fraud
lawful way.
contract.
I just want to address a couple of comments in chat. So we will be, so for Debbie, we will be sharing the format that you can take the oath in due course. If you want, Jackie, we can bring up some of the templates. We've had 25 requests already for document packs, with about 3 or 4 that are missing slightly with the lawful info. So just make sure you do put lawful space info. We have 243 live viewers. We really appreciate everyone for tuning in here. Our aim here is to empower people with knowledge on what is Article 61, why there's a treasonous act going on here by the Queen and her governments for a long, long time. Kieran Franey has asked, who exactly are the barons? Do we know their names? Have they logged who they are?
Yes.
You'd have to look at the list. The one I refer to most is Lord Craigmile. He was involved with the petition to the Queen and the invoking of Article 61. And he's definitely accepting oaths. So he's the one we generally go to the most. Okay, but we do have a list in the group.
And I've put it within the quick guide that I've created as well, so it's easy access. But the point is that you don't even need to send it to the Baron in physical form. What I understand is that the intention of you creating your oath and getting 3 good men and women to sign it as witnesses is makes it I want to say legal, but it's not. It's lawful. A lawful notice that tells you where you stand.
It makes it a lawful instrument, yes. However, I do highly recommend sending the oath, because a lot of people don't realize that when something is sent registered mail, it's automatically a lawful instrument, and it cannot be denied in law. So having that postal receipt and that tracking number gives us an extra level of protection. They can't deny our intent once it has been mailed. And it also allows the barons to see that our numbers are growing, especially throughout the Commonwealth countries, because now we've got so many Commonwealth countries starting to join. It lets them know that the movement is growing beyond just the UK.
Okay, I'm trying to catch up with some of the questions. So Matt L says, has anyone actually successfully used Article 61? So let's try and put that into some context, because go for it. Because that was one of my questions before I even met you, Jackie, was like, talk us through how we know this can be successful, and, you know, what do we need to do in our thinking to know that this is perhaps the case?
Well, like I said, Article 61 is the highest constitutional law ever written. We need to have faith in that law. And I like to say, do the learning, learn your stuff, because the law is only as effective as the person who's using it. So if you know the material and you're confident in yourself and the law, then you won't have any problems using Article 61. We have many success stories throughout the Commonwealth. I myself have been successfully using Article 61 for over a year now. Okay. And I've got the Alberta Sheriff's Department completely terrified of me.
Fantastic. So that becomes, I guess, your knowledge and your actions and your language then has to be tailored to sitting in the right place so you don't get caught, I guess. So could you give us an example?
We don't really worry too much about the language. We just keep it simple. We stick to the basics of Article 61. The notices we've provided people have everything we need in them. They are strong, they are effective, and they have all of the evidence within them. So the documents themselves are enough. We have to add a cover letter here or there, but we just keep it simple. They don't have authority since the invocation of Article 61. They have no jurisdiction to deal with any of the matters, and it's unlawful for us to comply with their demands. We keep it very, very basic. We reject their legalese, so we don't have to worry about watching our words, so to speak, because we completely reject that foreign language because it's treason.
So there's a few skeptics in chat, which is perfectly fine. I think I would be the same. You know, why do I need to take interest in this? Please, everyone, try using Lawful space info to get your pack. I'm getting quite a few that just dropping into my inbox, which means it didn't work. Try and get the Lawful space info, and what you'll see in the pack is a whole bunch of templates. There are Word documents and PDFs, but they are basically the notice of. Why don't we go through a couple? The notice of. Which would you say is the most important? The oath of allegiance to a baron?
The oath is the most important, as in order to use Article 61, we have to be standing under it.
Okay.
So the oath is very important, yes. But there's actually two types of processes.
Okay.
There's the oath there.
That's the oath, which basically says, dear Lord Craigmile, which is one of the barons, in full knowledge of treason being committed in Parliament by delivering the sovereign peoples of this common law land into the hands of foreign powers, in understanding of some wrongdoings done by the present holder of the office of sovereign, from whom I now transfer my allegiance, do so willingly and wholeheartedly, enter into lawful dissent as the law demands by royal command, and I solemnly swear upon my oath to obey the direction of the Lords Barons Committee, whom invoked Article 61 of the 1215 Magna Carta on the 23rd of March 2001 in accordance with royal command to do so, as long as said barons act strictly in accordance with the constitutional law at all times without deviation until such times as redress of these present wrongs have been achieved. So for me, that says, as long as the barons are playing by the rules, as in the constitution, I'm happy to disentangle myself from the acts of Parliament, and my oath is now sworn to these barons. Now, I quite understand the skeptics' viewpoint of why should I swear my rights to people I don't know. So,
well, that's the thing. We're not swearing our rights.
So
that's not what this is. This oath is a lawful document of our intent to reject the treasonous regime. That's all it is. We are not handing over our rights. We are not handing over our sovereignty. We are self-governing under our common law system.
Okay.
The oath is to the Constitution via the barons.
Yes. And allegedly
they are in service to the people, not the other way around.
I wish we had allegedly Dave here as well, because he managed to do this lots of years ago.
See, I don't think, actually, I think there's a difference because there's, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
There's a difference. A lot of people talk about free man and Magna Carta, and they're two different things. The free man is the free man of the land. You know, it's based on the same principles of common law, but you're not stating yourself as a sovereign.
Exactly.
Whereas the oath is you are a sovereign man or woman with God-given unalienable rights, whereas a free man is I'm just a free man in the land.
Sovereignty trumps all. You can be a free man, but you're not sovereign. Sovereignty means we are kings and queens in our own land.
Okay.
That sovereignty trumps a free man. It's higher status, shall we say.
And we are a sovereign nation. We are a nation of sovereigns. So if you think about it like that, it's just slightly different terminology, but it's positioning yourself a bit more with you're empowering yourself. Somebody says, you know, does this just relate to the UK? And no, it doesn't. It's all Commonwealth countries. In fact, most countries around the world, their laws are based on this very cornerstone.
Exactly. Carta is the English and Commonwealth Constitution. Article 61 is a Commonwealth law, so it applies to all Commonwealth countries.
I see.
So there's a quick guide that I've been working on, and Jackie's been helping me as well. And Robin's got it up on the screen, but this is, I hope, going to be a helpful document that people can go to. I'm not, Jackie's got a lot of resources on the Facebook page, way more than this covers, but it's a snapshot as to what instrument it is and why you should do it, and some of the common themes that have come out with some further information and some support. And I would definitely recommend, if you're unsure about this or you don't know, email Robin and get this document once it's finalized in this legal pack, because it actually, I found it really useful to empower me. I feel more emboldened now if a police officer was to come to my door, or if even asking questions at the council and understanding whether they're acting criminally, unlawfully. And as I say, I found it really helpful. I'm definitely going to be undertaking the oath. That is my next step. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to have this discussion as well, Jackie, is you have to make sure it's done in the right way. So even though it's a bit fiddly and it's a bit complex, you need to stick with it, because it is a powerful tool.
Yes, and we've got all the templates here, plus the guidance notes. So there are basically different notices here that you have to serve, I believe, and they all need signing and witnessing. So, for instance, there's one called the notice to default, and the notice to stop.
The notices go in a particular order. There's two separate types of processes. There's the process when there's no demands placed on us. So once we take the oath, we have to notify them of our lawful standing by putting a judge and the chief of police on notice. So we do that using the process for no demand. The notice to the chief inspector, the lawful objection to police inspector goes to the chief of police. The notice of lawful objection to any Crown agent goes to the judge. And that's the first notice. They have 14 days to reply to that. And then you send the second notice, which is the notice of default and opportunity to cure.
Okay.
From there, you go to the notice of default, and then the notice of coercion to aid and abet high treason, and then finally the notice to stop.
I see.
And the process is similar for when there's demands placed on you, like tax time rolls around and they want property taxes for your home. You would start the process on town council, whoever's making the demands, starting with the notice of lawful objection, or the notice of conditional acceptance.
Yes.
And then you would go into the default and opportunity to cure, the notice of default, coercion to aid and abet, and the notice to stop.
Okay, now these are in the guidance notes here, people. So I'd like to keep the conversation fairly high level, just to make sure we can capture the majority of people's imaginations about this. Did an email address? So go ahead.
Well, I was going to say a good example of why a notice to your chief inspector, the chief constable of your town or your region or your area, whoever is governing your local region, you would send this notice to them that you are now under oath and that you don't want any problems with them, like you just want to keep the peace. That's effectively what your notice is saying to them. You don't want to with any of your officers, blah blah blah. If then you got pulled over or stopped or searched or arrested or whatever, your first question is, you're under oath today. You know, are you under oath to uphold the law? Well, you would also, are you aware that I am under oath? I'm under oath to the barons. And when they say no, because the inspector, it's notice to principal, is notice to the
agent.
So whoever received that chief inspector who received that notice from you, if he didn't inform his officers all below him, that makes him malfeasance in a public office, right? He has committed a crime because he has failed to inform every officer under him that you are under oath to the Magna Carta, and he has basically not done that. That's how powerful this is. And he wouldn't get away if you've got the proof that you sent that notice to the chief constable and proof that he received it.
Yes, and we always keep a copy of every notice we send. We always send them registered mail to make them lawful instruments and undeniable in law. And we keep our postal receipt and our tracking number. We staple those to our copy of the notice, and that gets filed under our evidence. When the people have redress, there will be another mass treason trial similar to Nuremberg, but it will be a jury of the people. And we will be asked to submit our evidence to the jury. And every person we put on notice will stand trial for treason. We've got a beautiful constitutional caution card that people can carry with them. If they get pulled over by the police, they can, before the police even speak, we film them. Always record your interactions with them. We film them as we recite the constitutional caution card. Because the chief inspector has already been put on notice, any action that officer takes from the moment you have put him on constitutional caution is high treason, which still carries the gallows.
Wow.
Now, I will bring up something as well. Sorry, someone's written a comment it's Mickey. He said, now, Jackie, I sent you a video, and this video has gone around many people, and I'm certain that people in this chat have already seen this video as well. And it's to do with a group that has united much more widely. Many groups are uniting, and these guys served papers to Scotland Yard on Saturday, and they say that they have got good legal or lawyers, representatives that understand the common law, and that they believe they've served these notices or these papers on Saturday under Article 61, but the police refused to accept the papers. Now, I don't know what happened with that. I think they are on notice for 30 days, but it's a different process than what you've been describing. And I sent you the video. So do you mind maybe talking around that?
Yeah, well, like I said, Article 61 is, the law is only effective as the person who is using it. So this process needs to be done properly. And that's all 5 notices being served in the correct order to the correct people. The notices are extremely powerful. I know when I put the Canadian Prime Minister on notice, as soon as he received the first notice, he was actually in Saskatchewan getting ready for a $1,500 a plate fundraiser. And as soon as the notice arrived in Parliament, he canceled all of his fundraisers and events, and he flew back to Ottawa for an emergency meeting with his cabinet. So they are very powerful notices indeed. So we have to do the process in the correct order for sure. That's why knowing your stuff is very important. Study. Get to know those notices, read them regularly so that you understand how Article 61 works. And if we're using the process in the correct order, it's amazing the things that we can do. David Robinson used Article 61 to actually seize Glastonbury Town Hall in 2015. So these notices can actually lay the groundwork for public building seizures. And we actually have a constitutional duty under Article 61 to seize government buildings and assets using Article 61.
Can I ask, Jackie, now, I understand Magna Carta, Article 61, people coming under oath, so they are no longer, they are rejecting a treasonous government, a treasonous regime, and to bring redress that definitely needs to happen. But what about those people who might not be bothered about taking redress with the government by seizing buildings and all of that? Well, you can still take an oath, or declare an affidavit, or declare your truth that you are not your fictional character, that you are a flesh and blood man or woman, but it wouldn't be part of the movement, right? It's just basically you can still do that and separate yourself.
Yes,
but Article 61 is about a movement towards seizing buildings and bringing redress.
Yes, because Article 61 is the only law in effect, we all have a constitutional duty to take that oath and stand under Article 61 and reject the treasonous regime. So what it basically boils down to is anyone that is not standing under Article 61 is actually aiding and abetting a treasonous regime. You might as well be out there voting for the criminals.
I see. And someone else has asked a really good question. What if they aren't born in the country but has lived in a country most of their life? Can they still come under oath?
As long as you are living in a Commonwealth country or were born in a Commonwealth country, you can use Article 61.
And that's because you come under that country's jurisdiction. You come under that
the Magna Carta
land. Yeah.
Yes.
So, do you mind just giving an example of where Article 61 has been successful? Someone's asking, provide me an example of where it's been successful.
Well, like I just said, David Robinson used it to seize Glastonbury Town Hall. If you can use it to seize a building, I would call that success.
Okay.
But we have, in the group, under the topics list, we have a topic titled Successful Processes. There's all sorts of stories in there.
Council tax, driving licenses, everything that's to do with your kind of everyday existence, really. The things that matter, they're all there, and I've seen them myself. So you can go through that and see that there are processes to it, just like everything else. But we've got to get out of this mindset that of this microwave culture, ding, and it's ready. We have to sometimes put a bit of effort in. And I mean, I've heard people talk about this, and sometimes it takes a little while to go through that process. Of course it does. You have to send letters off. You have to wait 10 or 14 days. You have to send another letter, wait another 10, 14 days. So there is some patience to it, but it's like you say, once it's there, it's an instrument that cannot be swiped from you.
So Matt L and my frequencies. So Matt L, I hope you're listening, because there's a couple of people who just sort of they're a bit skeptical, and I do understand that point of view. If it's fresh and new, this information, join the Facebook group Practical Lawful Dissent UK, Canada and Commonwealth. Ask your questions in there. We've just referenced some success stories there. And do request this information pack from us. It's going to be in the Facebook group as well. But if you want it all in one hit, then please do send the email. I'm just going to read out. So Michael, Mattia, and Jerry, I don't think the documents made it to you. If you don't mind just trying again with lawful info. Somebody else asked a question earlier. What about passports and driving licenses? How do we cover those? Is that possible?
Well, here's the thing about sovereignty. Under sovereignty, we are self-governing. So those questions are a little bit hard to answer, because once you're sovereign under Article 61, everything's up to you. You're now making the decisions for your life. If you want to use your passport under duress. If you want to fight the licensing, like if you're driving for a living, like driving a taxi or a goods truck or anything like that, then you have to comply with the regulations, because you're doing commerce. But if you're not driving for a living and you just want to travel freely, you don't require a license. So you can fight the regime on that using the process. It all depends on how you want to use your sovereignty.
Okay.
Yeah, because I just want to touch on that as well. Like you say, you have to state that you're doing it under duress once you're under oath. So just tell us, Jackie, on a practical level, if I took an oath, would I write to the DVLA, which is the Driving and Vehicle Licensing Agency set up by the government, which has got a highways code and acts and statutes that everybody who travels on the public highways has to adhere to once? Because what happens is when you sign up for a driving license,
you're contracting.
You're making joinder with them. You're saying, I'm going to comply with all your terms and conditions. My fictional character is going to comply with all your terms and conditions.
Yeah.
And again, the language used is very different. So, for example, if you look up the terminology for driver, it is someone who is being paid for commerce, to move commerce. Whereas you are not a driver, you are a person, you're a man or woman.
I'm a traveler. Yeah.
And they will say that you are a driver in a vehicle. Now again, a vehicle, if you look up the terminology for a vehicle, it is a commercial asset, it's a commercial commerce. But you're not. You're a man or woman traveling in your own private or personal conveyance. It's a different language. So if you decided to deregister from the DVLA and you were stopped by the police, you are now your man and woman. You're the man or woman driving your own personal conveyance, and the officer has no reason to be stopping you. He's actually committing a crime because he's hindering you from exercising your unalienable rights to travel across the land. And I think that's what people need to wrestle with. The language.
And once we're under oath, they're also obstructing us from our constitutional duties. So there's a nice little added touch.
Oh, really? And when you say constitutional duties, what do you mean?
Well, it's our constitutional duty to reject the treasonous regime. It's our constitutional duty to inform others about Article 61 and get the message out.
So it's like coercion. If they come and stop you and they try and get you to sign up to their terms, to comply with their rules, they're actually, not only is it trespass, and but they are trying to get you to aid and abet.
It's coercion, aid and abet treason, because Article 61 encourages us to reject the treasonous regime at all costs. So, well, not all costs. We have to not put ourselves in harm's way, of course, but we're supposed to disobey them whenever we can safely. So it's an important distinction there, because when we're rejecting the treasonous regime, we are actually doing as the law demands. So for them to try and enforce unlawful acts and statutes upon us, they're actually committing treason.
Okay. Well, I must admit, this is really capturing the minds of a lot of people watching. You know, we've had consistently 250 live viewers for over an hour now. This is absolutely brilliant that everyone's in this conversation with you. We've had 55 requests, 64 requests for information. And I hope the 3 that I read out earlier have now successfully got their document pack. So how would you like to address what's going forward? You know, if you, Jackie and Simone, if you could encourage people to do, I don't know, step 1, 2, and 3, what would they be for a newcomer?
The first thing is to get under oath.
Yes, the first thing is to get under oath. The second step is to notify them of your lawful standing. Like I said, put the chief of police and a judge on notice. Once you've done that, it's really up to you what you want to do with Article 61. Let's say, for example, you're concerned with the 5G technology. You can use the process of Article 61 to go after government for implementing that technology. So you would go after like the Minister of Infrastructure and Technology. 5G is also a military grade weapon. So you would go after the Minister of Defense, anything like that, right? So you might want to get familiar with the politicians in your local councils, your local parliaments, things like that, because
this is one. So for example, I was thinking if there was a mass movement where everybody came under oath, you could write to your council and you could say, tell me what technology you have installed that is 5G activated or can be activated. Tell me what insurances you've got against such harm from such technologies, because there is this proof that it's harmful.
It's easier just to put them on notice with a cover letter stating that you don't consent to the technology.
So there you go. And the same with vaccines, right? Because you've broken with every act and statute, they don't apply to you. It's like water off a duck's back.
I see.
You're saying, I am not in allegiance to you. I don't comply with your act and statute.
If they make a demand for vaccines, then you just put them on notice. Anything they do against you is high treason. So, and that's what it really boils down to. I think people have a hard time understanding how sending off simple notices can actually hold government accountable. But the fact of the matter is high treason is still punishable by the gallows, right? So if you look at it on a human level, their jobs are not worth their lives. And most of the time, they're not going to risk their life just to follow orders from a boss for a job that they're probably not getting paid very well to do. You know what I mean?
But also, a lot of these people don't realize. They don't realize that they themselves are the problem, and that because we're all born into this matrix, I'm going to call it, because it is, we are blinkered. We don't really see it for what it truly is. And a lot of people don't realize that they have the power to change it. Awesome. One thing I want to ask, Jackie, how many people do you think there are around the world who are under oath right now, in all the Commonwealth? Have you got an idea? Or?
Oh, goodness, that is so hard to judge at this point. We're trying to, there's so many different Facebook groups dedicated to Magna Carta and Article 61. So there is a lot of people under oath throughout the Commonwealth. Trying to keep track of that number has not been an easy process. We're trying to filter everybody into the Practical Lawful Dissent UK, Canada, and Commonwealth group. That way we can start to get a clearer idea of the numbers. Once we brought out the right to travel stickers that people can have made for their vehicles, that's when we started to get a clearer picture of how many countries are actively using Article 61. I think we're up to 16 countries now that are using Article 61 throughout the Commonwealth.
And this is a numbers game. This has always been a numbers game. I think I was talking to Tony a few weeks ago, and he was saying something like maybe known people under oath is probably around 25,000 around the Commonwealth, but it's likely to be a lot more than that.
It's a lot more than that. Yeah.
But I think just imagine, right? Just imagine you got yourself under oath, and say there was 10,000 or 20,000 of us here in the UK, and we all put our councils on notice, and they have no rebuttal because they cannot rebut the truth. They cannot. It's for them to prove you otherwise, that they, know. So if they can't do that, then you have lawful right not to pay council tax.
If we use the notices correctly, and we're putting all of council on notice and things like that, and we're trying to compel them to stand with us under Article 61, it lays the groundwork for the building seizures. And that's really how we're going to seek redress. We have to take those buildings. They're our buildings. They belong to us. That's how the barons got King John to seal the Magna Carta in the first place. It was by seizing those lands, seizing those castles. And that's really where the movement lies. Article 61 is definitely a numbers game. There's no doubt about that. We are the 99, they are the 1%. So the only two things government actually fears is Article 61 and unity of the people. We need to do both. So by using the processes to lay the groundwork throughout the Commonwealth, it is our goal to do mass building seizures on an international scale, which will absolutely cripple the regime, and they'll have no choice but to give us the redress we are seeking.
Wow, that's extremely powerful. Now, if I had one thing I'd like to manifest and visualize, it's definitely that. The people taking back their power. That is definitely a powerful thing to go and focus the mind on, because we all want nothing more than to take our power back, but we need to see a route map. And we're all trying to wake each other up because of this big pandemic. I'm going to leave the commentary at that at the moment. We've got some very dissenting voices in amongst the chat room today, and those, no doubt, those of you watching this after the event. So I can now visualize what we all need to do. We need to get signed under oath. We need to read and understand these documents. We need to email that email address for the pack so you can read Simone's overview notes. We can join forces with people locally, and the only way we're going to get organized to do that is either join your Facebook group. Maybe there's a Facebook group in the UK as well. Go and find people online that can help you organize locally, and you could then be in a position where you're being empowered by brothers and sisters all around you who've got some knowledge, got some confidence, and can get an action plan together to do just the kind of things you described in Glastonbury, which is obviously a huge result. And for those that are still skeptical in the chat room, perhaps it would be worth going to find out what happened in Glastonbury. Let's go and go and talk to people who've been there, done it, seen it.
Is there a video, Jackie? Is there a video of him doing it?
Yes, there is actually, and in the topic section of the group, we've got a topic titled Building Seizures specifically for this. There's the video of David seizing the town hall, and there's also a follow-up news interview with David after the seizure. And David has put together this beautiful strategy guide for us so that we can organize our international push for redress by doing building seizures. It's the proposed guide to the proposed strategy to the remedy guide.
And obviously for those who are new to this is obviously advanced stuff. You're going to need some courage, confidence to get this far. But why don't you just start by reading the guidance notes and maybe consider swearing the oath yourself? Certainly on top of my list in the next couple of weeks is to really dive deep into this, because Simone graciously put this interview together. It's definitely a fascinating subject, and I've now got the distinction between the common law and sovereign man movement and the Article 61 movement, which is different. It's based on very similar principles, but it certainly has this great big like rail gun of a weapon that you can use, which is totally different scenario. Suddenly there's this huge thing that the elite are terrified of. And I think people have quite rightly, with their skepticism, gone, well, I don't see any success. I've not seen what this would mean. They can't visualize it yet. But thankfully, you've painted this picture of enough people do this and go and seize the properties and the buildings. This is what we've all been waiting for, guys. This is how you do it. If you're angry about your government's treatment in this pandemic and all the draconian measures that are now being rolled out, this is your opportunity to use this and make a difference in a very powerful way.
And in a peaceful way. It's a peaceful way. You're not going down there banging on the door and vandalizing everything. You send your notices, you put everyone on notice, and then all you do is rock up. They can't, because it's legally binding, because I want to say it's not legally, but
the way that we do the building seizures, first we do the groundwork so that we have lawful excuse to take them. Okay. Yeah. Once we have lawful excuse to take them, they are public buildings. They belong to the public. So we are allowed to access those buildings. Think of it like going to the library. Okay, people sit in a library all day long. They're quiet, they're calm, they're reading, they're on the internet, doing their own thing, minding their own business. That's what our building seizures are like. We have one person per building that is the representative, the spokesperson, shall we say, because the cops will be called, the police will show up, and one person and one person only deals calmly with the police, presents them with the evidence that the people have lawful excuse to take the building, and then they walk away. And everybody is just sitting there quietly, reading books or talking quietly amongst each other. There's no picket signs, nothing like that. It's not a protest. It is a quiet sit-in building seizure. And we've designed beautiful banners that people can have made up to hang outside the building to say that the building has lawfully been seized. And you just hang out and chill.
And then what happens, Jackie? What happens after that point? I mean, you'll have to go home for your dinner soon, but once you've seen,
you can rotate. So if 5 people go at 5:30 to have supper, 10 people, you just rotate. So there's always people in the building, and you can still go home, shower, change, whatever. Because we're going to want to take these buildings until we have redress. So we're trying to organize it so that we can do mass building seizures all on the same day throughout the Commonwealth. That's going to take a lot of organization and planning to do. So if anyone's interested in that, please get in the Facebook group and make sure you're on the email list, because when we start doing building seizures, all correspondence is going to be done via email. Okay. So, we want to organize it so that we don't have to take the buildings for very long. The more buildings we take, the less amount of time we're going to have to hang on to them. And especially when there's the more countries that are involved, right? If we do this on an international scale, we can maybe take the buildings for a day or two, and the regime will be so crippled they'll have to cave. And it just depends. It just depends. We may have to take it longer.
And
pick strategic buildings in strategic locations, which I'm sure you've all figured out already. Someone's put in here, I have no doubt that you are correct, but what can be done when the police and judges just ignore your stance? Now, I already know the answer to that, in the sense, that's what you really want. Is if they don't respond to you, it's seen as them accepting, and it means you've got less work on your hands.
Yes. Yeah, the notices clearly state that no response to them means that they are in full agreement with everything the notices are stating.
There you go.
So no response is a good thing. Usually, I find the only time that the regime really tries to give us resistance is when there's money involved, because everything's listed as a corporation, right? They want those revenues. So as soon as you start denying the money, that's when they'll start trying to send you rebuttal letters. But of course, they can't send us the evidence that they need to. They can't prove authority. All governments were dissolved on March 23rd, 2001. They have no authority, and they know it.
Yes, okay. And just as a recap for those who joined late in this stream, Simone and Jackie have kindly walked us through the Article 61 movement and what that Article 61 allows the average person to do. And we discussed various documents, with this overview document being a great introduction to the whole subject. So if you want to learn all about this, then do send me an email, robin3108@hotmail.com, with the subject lawful space info. And it has to be that way, folks, because it's an auto email. Then you get this whole pack, including this quick guide and all of the documents here. I recommend that you watch this back. So this is currently on the Event 202 channel, my channel, which is Lifting the Lid, and also the Facebook group Event 202. But we've mentioned Jackie's Facebook group, where we can reach her and the community there. Just let us know what that Facebook group is called. I've put it in the show notes for both the YouTube chats. I'm not sure it will end up being in the Event 2021.
I've copied the link into the chat for people to the Facebook page.
It's called Practical Lawful Dissent, UK, Canada, and Commonwealth. Okay.
Well, we've had some great comments. My frequency is some great comments from you, sir, or madam. I don't know whether you're a man or woman, but fantastic participant with your comments. You've said a great live stream. Thanks to everyone on the call, everyone in chat. Lawful Rebellion, and we mean Dissent, really, don't we? It was a big piece of the puzzle for me. Truly changed the direction of my life. Thank you for that comment. That's really nice.
Oh, I've heard some very positive experiences. We had another guy from England on an interview, a Q&A, and many people found it really interesting because this stuff is hidden from us, and it's hidden for us for a reason, just like they hide a lot of other things. And I think once you start to unpick it, it actually makes so much sense. And that's from my own perspective. I found it very helpful, and I can see the merit of being able to wield this as a sword, because your pen is like a sword. So
yes, exactly. So Article 61 gives us a way to actually fight back against the regime, and that's an amazing thing, and we're safe doing it because we're in the safety of our homes. We're using our pens, and we're fighting back with the power of the pen. And treason is a silent war, it gives us a way to hit the battlefield,
Also, yeah. I've got some very good links that I'll share with everybody to other channels that I found really helpful. There's a guy called Romley Stewart in Australia who's been talking about this. He goes through the birth certificate fraud. He goes through governments and how they're all corporations. He goes through it in the language and how.
I would like to address one thing on the Romley Stewart issue.
Yeah.
I don't recommend that people get the long form birth certificate, or the certificate of live birth as it's also known. And the reason I say that is because it is still a birth certificate from the same treasonous regime. you're not actually separating yourself from anything. You are still consenting to their authority. And why I say that is because the long form birth certificate has your footprint on it. And that's where the deception starts, because we are born through a birthing canal. So once they take you out of that birthing canal and they put your footprint to that birth certificate before your foot has ever touched the land, you are still under admiral law.
Wow.
Interesting.
But there are, if you go to there are places that you can go to, like the common law courts, where you can apply for your flesh and blood man, woman birth certificate and an ID card, things like that, that can help.
You can, yes, you can, but it's not necessary. Our oath is all we need. That oath breaks all contracts, including the fraudulent birth certificate. So it cuts us off from the system completely.
Oh, okay. So you're saying it's, but we use it under duress. We remain with it, but it's under duress.
Yes, yes.
But then there are some people who will want to go to the extreme of deregistering I mean, even for example, your car, you know, when you register.
I've got my common law ID, I've got my common law birth certificate, and I've even registered my vehicle with them, yes.
So that's what I mean. Some people will want to completely detach or disassociate themselves.
It's a personal choice, not a necessity. Yeah, and the oath is really all you need.
And it depends on your circumstance. So if you are, say, for example, a single mom who was receiving state benefits, you might think, I don't want to deregister myself because then I won't be able to claim government assistance. But actually, what you do is you collect it under duress, and that's how you put them on notice.
And it's very simple to do that. When we comply to government regulations, say, for example, to collect benefits, we simply put 3 dots in front of our signature, and we put a colon, in between, like just before our surname, because that separates the legal fiction. So the 3 dots are similar to duress. We're not under threat of violence or arrest, but it just simply means we have something to say about this before signing. I know, basically I'm under duress doing this. I have to receive my benefits, so I have no choice. So that's what the 3 dots represent. The colon separates you from your legal fiction.
So is there somewhere where we can go for that information? Is that on your Facebook page, Jackie? Or is there a site that to go to for that? Because there's different signatures, isn't there? And there's the different ways you write your name will signify certain things about what you're saying, what you're declaring.
Yeah, I can probably put something up there, but I think we've just been recommending different things to people when situations arise. Okay. Another form of duress is to put VC in front of your signature. That we usually only use the VC when they've threatened to arrest us or they're dragging us into court against our will under the threat of arrest. So.
Okay, thank you. I just want to quickly answer Sally's question. I've sent 3 emails and not received the documents. What can I do? Maybe you may not have picked up. It's 3108 Sally at hotmail.com. And you make sure you put lawful info in the subject. I can't see your email coming in, so I'm presuming you may have got my email address incorrect. There's a possibility that some have gone into my junk mail, which sometimes happens. Sally, there you are. Oh, crumbs. I'm going to be a busy boy tonight. I will move all of these into the inbox. Some do go straight into spam. So Simone, you carry on addressing comments and I'll get busy with the emails. Go for it.
Well, I think this is all about freeing ourselves from the servitude that we're born into, and it's about self-empowerment and knowing where you stand, and that there is redress, but really does depend on the people uniting. You know, a few of us could go down, you know, go and seize the hall, but actually, what difference will it make unless it's on a much bigger scale?
Yeah. Exactly. Like I said, the only two things the government fears is Article 61 and unity of the people. We got to do both.
Yeah. So yeah, Robin, I will send you some links to some other really useful people to listen to. There's a channel on YouTube called the Glossa channel, and he has a lot of stuff in relation to the language that's used.
Okay.
He really breaks it down as to what they use within a courtroom, within their Mickey Mouse pantomime shows, you know, and what we're really, but how the English language going back has been corrupted and the words used to turn in on us. It really is interesting.
Yeah. And all of that stems from Black's Law Dictionary.
Okay.
So Black's Law's dictionary is what they use in the courts and magistrates, and that's their legalese, yeah? Black Dictionary. But we want to operate under the Oxford Styles Manual, is that right?
Yes.
So if you look at the difference in the terminologies from if you think about the common law language is under the Oxford Styles Manuals, and the legalese criminal courts that they purport, you know, that they have set up is under this Black Dictionary language. You will understand the magic of language that they have. It was like word spells all over again.
It is crazy, isn't it?
Words have spelling. Spelling is spells.
And do you know what? This needs to be understood, I think, very, you know, more than anything, people need to understand the language that they use when they put that down, what it actually means. That has so been taken away from us. And even like you said, Robin, going back to the start of this situation, just something as simple as when a police officer says to you, do you understand? When you say yes, you now stand under their authority, and that's what they want to hear. They want to hear you say yes.
Consent.
And now you've just consented to make joinder with them, to contract with them.
Yeah.
So just something as simple as that, knowing that really helps.
Fantastic. So is there, Jackie, is there anything we haven't asked you that you wished we had?
Actually, there is one thing that I think it is important for people to know. Let me just find it here.
And whilst you're looking, there are a handful of people who didn't get the email. Sorry, I'm going to have to do that by hand. So after the live stream, you'll get your emails.
Also, Jackie, it'll be good to know if a lot of people now decide to go down this process and be a part. It's not the only tool. I mean, it is the highest law of the land, and that's the remedy is the highest kind that the people can bring. But I mean, there are lots of other tools at the moment that people can do to fight this or to delay it or to prevent it, like, you know, don't comply in general with their corrupt.
Yes and no. See, the problem is, with Article 61 being the only law in effect, it is really the only tool we need. And it is actually very dangerous for us to mix any other method of fighting the regime with Article 61. Because if we start using unlawful acts and statutes, if we claim to be a free man, if we go out and protest, these are all things that the regime will use against you. And because we are using the most powerful law we have, they tend to be very angry. So once they get you under their jurisdiction, shall we say, or into their grasp, they're going to make a martyr out of you. So we tell people, don't use free man on the land methods. Don't protest. Don't quote unlawful acts and statutes. Don't go into their treasonous courts, because if they get their hands on you after that, it's very dangerous. You know, you could end up in prison or anything, you know. So we always say stick to Article 61. It's all we need, and it covers everything.
Fantastic.
So tell me, Jackie, then, just very quickly, if I took my oath and I'm now standing under Article 61 and I get arrested, which is trespass and kidnap, if I get arrested for something that no crime, I'm upholding the Constitution, I'm just exercising my unalienable rights as a free man, woman, sovereign man, woman on the land, and they come and interfere and trespass and cart me off and kidnap me. When you're in that police station, they're going to try and get you to sign things. They're going to try and help you with things.
That's when you put VC before your signature,
which means
you're signing under extreme duress when you put VC. There's a maxim in law: any act done by me against my will is not my act. That's why we comply under duress when necessary. But if you're using Article 61 properly, chances are you're not going to get arrested.
Okay.
Interesting.
Wow. I've just sent all the emails out. So if you haven't got one now, you really need to just email me a straightforward email and I'll make sure you've got it. Robin3108@hotmail.com with lawful info in the subject. We've had pretty much 100 requests in this live stream. So that gives me great encouragement that people really want to see these documents and understand more. And I think it's about time we wrapped up because we could overload people. And I'm sure for the newbies, this is a deep dive and probably they need to go away and crawl off into the corner and have a drink. But do download these documents. Do email me if you've not done so yet. We've put Jackie's Facebook group in the description of both the YouTube streams. So that's Event 202 YouTube and Lifting the Lid. That's my channel. I got struck off a couple of weeks ago because I hosted a controversial video with two doctors. And so if you're in the Event 202 YouTube group, YouTube channel, sub, or the YouTube Facebook group, please do sub to Lifting the Lid channel because I lost quite a few subs a couple of weeks ago. It'd be great to have you along, and you can benefit from interviews such as this. Simone, you did a wonderful job of bringing somebody in with fascinating story, a fascinating subject to dive deep into. Is there, before I go to you, Jackie, is there anything you'd like to sort of summarize and wrap up yourself?
The only thing I really want to add is I think it's important to note how this movement actually was started. Elizabeth Becket was she was the first person to defend our Constitution and our human rights. She was the daughter of a high court judge, and she took a one-woman legal stance against her local council using her profound knowledge of the Constitution. She took her fight all the way to the Queen, writing letters to Queen Elizabeth.
Wow.
She wrote her last letter to Queen Elizabeth on January 21st of 2009, just before losing her fight to leukemia. And she was 85 years old, leading the way, defending our rights. And she was the first person who did this. So she's the one that actually mentored David Robinson, and she taught him everything that he knew. And he's since taught me everything I know. So I think Elizabeth's story is important to bring to the people.
Fantastic. And I'm aware of some other guys in Bristol, for instance, who are very switched on to this subject. So it's definitely made me now pay much more attention to what's going on in Bristol. Simone, is there anything you'd like to say to wrap up? Sorry, you're on mute, Simone. Do you mind starting again?
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Just to say thank you to Jackie. You know, you're a very busy lady. You're running this group. You get innumerable amounts of questions a day from people who sometimes are just not willing to look through the files section within the Facebook page, which has tons and tons of information. I think this is a real opportunity for us to unite. It's great that other groups are seeing the benefit of such a movement. They might not have it totally right. I'm a bit skeptical of what they've achieved on Saturday. It's good that they're doing stuff, but maybe going to lawyers and solicitors is not what is even necessary. No. I think maybe they are still stuck in the legalese mindset, and that could cause real confusion. And I've seen it already. A lot of people saying he's using the term legal within the video, which wasn't helpful. So it is, you know, we're so grateful for what you're doing, the work that you're doing. I want more people to get on board with this, and there is a timeline. You are preparing a timeline for building seizures. So there's this window that we have right now where we can really make an impact. And so people need to get onto this. They need to be getting under oath, under Article 61. And tell me, Jackie, is there a place that they can register so that you know that they're under oath? It's like adding to the numbers.
Right now, I'm kind of, because this is going to take a lot of organization and planning, I'm asking people to get on the email list. Once the numbers on the email list are looking a lot better, that's when I'm going to start keeping track of everything. Who's under oath, who's using the process, because the groundwork really needs to be done correctly in order for this to be successful. So we need everybody on the same page. You know what I mean? And that means knowing how to do those 5 notice processes properly. So right now we're just getting everybody under oath and getting them using the process, familiar with the process. And then we can really start keeping track of who's where, in what part of the process.
I've got some really good ideas to help you on that, Jackie. You don't have to be alone.
That would be great.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's it, really. We're just so grateful. I think we could possibly do another one of these further down the line, maybe with some specific questions that people might have, maybe just ratting out a few of these things. But also, we'll try and get some more information from you, Jackie, in reference to signatures and what color pen matters, right? And, you know, whether you do a fingerprint and all these little things that aren't so big, but once you know them, it's good to know them and to use it, because you don't you want to be squeaky clean, right?
Yes, we want to give the people as much protection as possible. Safety of the public is our primary goal. So
that's the goal as well.
Well, I would also like to thank you both, ladies, for just making this subject accessible for us. I'm still a newbie, so it's been a learning experience for me, and I'm sure everyone, lots of people in chat, were where I am. So I'm still dealing with emails, folks. Some of your emails went into my junk mail, but we've had well over 100 now, and I think I've probably got about 10 to follow up in. So be patient, folks. I'll get you your pack as soon as we start the live stream. Join the Facebook group. I'm sure Jackie from time to time will say, send me your email, and I'll put you on the list. Do you want to share your email address now, Jackie? Is that something worth doing or not?
Sure. It's very simple. It's a61phoenix@gmail.com. I also have it in the group under building seizures, as well as in the topic under my name, Jackie Phoenix. So it is there for people to find easy enough.
Okay. I'm just sticking it in there.
Send me the first email, and it's a one-click ad, and good to go.
Okay, so Simone's just popped that in chat, and Tanya, who sent me an email, if it's okay, just send Jackie an email. That's a61phoenix@gmail.com. I think we will leave this session and we'll call it a wrap, because I think it's done what we intended it to do, which was make the subject accessible, hopefully encourage people to take a much deeper look. 100+ people have asked for the packs. Please go and join the groups. You know, that's our call to action. Let's dip your toe. And for those that have looked into Sovereign Man and all that sort of stuff, now let's go and look at this, guys, because there's way more to this than meets the eye. And we can give the power back to the people. So why don't we leave it on that note, hey?
Thanks
you
very much for having me.
Thank you.
No worries. Well, pleasure, everyone. Thank you for joining. You've been a great chat room. Really appreciate all your support and love in chat. Until next time, we shall sign out, folks. Thank you once again. See you soon.
Bye-bye.